Season's greetings. If you are new to the channel, I want to thank you for stopping by. My name is Eric Moss. I'm a personal trainer, motivational speaker, and modern day performing strongman. If you're unfamiliar with what a modern day performing strongman is I perform feats of strength like the strongmen of old would do, like the Mighty Atom and Alexander Zass, but with a modern day twist. You know, some of the feats of strength that I might do would be like twisting horseshoes, breaking chains, bending steel bars, and some of the modern day feats might be like rolling up frying pans, holding back motorcycles, and that sort of thing. Now, being a modern day performing strongman, I know that people have questions for me about my approach to strength and stuff like that, as well as my knowledge base. So I started a YouTube series where I would invite you guys to ask me questions, and I would answer you with your very own custom video. Pretty neat, right? So this question comes from, hold on, I just had it. Oh, where did it go? Bear with me one moment, please. Uriel Tobia. And it's a pretty lengthy quote, but it starts off as, well, as I started to say, the chain breaks feats. Of course, there was the only one way to genuinely do this. Oh, and by the way, I believe that this is a quote from Alexander Zass's book, but it's been a while since I've read that. So, of course, there was only one way to genuinely do this, and it was to perform them as pure feats of expansion. That means that the affected parties be brought to the appropriate degree of strength and hardness, performing the practice during the period of preliminary preparation with very light gauge chains. Approach chains of a thickness that could not be broken easily, with the hope that by continual effort they would break. It would be little utility. The secret to all improvement in feats like this is progress gradually from one stage to another. The severity of the test is only increases by degrees that is barely noticeable. This any good teacher will tell you. Then the nails that I should drive through the boards would, well, that article has to be treated in a similarly. First, a thin board, my hand protected with a leather glove, then a thicker board, and then another thick still. Horses also have to be worked in the same way, men pulling from each side. I proposed begin with until eventually he could bear the tension of a sufficient number to reach the total horsepower of an adult truck. Oh, book by Alexander Zass. How is it to practice with a chain of little thickness and little by little go with a very thick one? Thank you for asking that, Uriel Tobia. Hope I pronounced that right. What all that basically means is progressive overload training done with feats of strength, which is a general way to train for just about anything that you want to work up to. So with weights, it's obvious. Start with something that you can do, add weight until you can do things that you previously couldn't. With steel bars, what my first mentor had me do, my first mentor, New Jersey Superman Greg Matonic, is he had me start off with a steel bar that he knew I could bend. I had taught him some of my numbers in the gym that I had done with kettlebells at the time, and even though he wasn't really a big believer of kettlebells, he knew some weights when he saw it. And he started me off with a relatively easy steel bar, which was 1/2 inch round at like 4 feet long or something, if I remember correctly. And then he would teach me the positions of bending it. But what he also taught me was that it is in the mindset to set my mind on it first so that I wouldn't hold myself back. And then gradually, he would give me shorter pieces of steel or thicker pieces of steel until I could bend something that was like pretty respectable. As far as chains, yeah, if you go to a hardware store, you're going to see chains of varying thicknesses. And it's hard to determine exactly how much strength it's going to be. But if you took little itty bitty chains that are like real easy to snap, you might double them up in order to practice the chest expansion. You might add some kind of external resistance like a band or something. Or you might just add, well, I mean, you have kind of a course there. You could add strands of dental floss. You could add like pieces of duct tape until it's something somewhat challenging until you can work up to the next level. Um, as for the horses, like the modern day version of holding back horses would be like holding back a motorcycle. I don't really have access to a lot of horses. And even if I did, if I went off to a barn, um, that sort of thing would be kind of a more trouble than it's worth. Like I don't have a whole lot of time in my schedule to just run off to a barn and ask to borrow their horse, even if they would allow it. There's like a lot of setup. If you watched my motorcycle video, I had already done the preparation for it before even attempting the motorcycle. It was an educated guess in that I was probably strong enough. And I did that with more practical methods like loading up a heavy swing handle, training with club bells, training with that, what I like to call Hands Without Shadows, which was inspired by Michelangelo Badio, who's probably the top shredder in the world. What else did he mention in there? Oh, the nail drives. So, if you took a nail and you took a board that was made out of like balsa wood, of course you're going to get it through there. That would be super easy. If you took a heavy board and you took a phone book or just pieces of paper, you drive it through the pieces of paper and you add a couple sheets, drive it through again. You can work your way up to a heavy board. Although in my experience, if you have a lot of power already, usually what holds people back from the board isn't a lack of power, at least it wasn't with me, or the other strongmen, many of whom I know. What holds people back is there's like that fear that kicks in at the last second that forces them to put the brakes on instead of just going all the way through with everything that they've got. That's usually what holds people back. If you need to work the technique though, and you need to build up the power, that might be one way to do it. Take a deck of cards. That would be an easy one. You've got your target there instead of using like big pieces of paper. Ripping the cards, the same thing. You get the technique. You start with something that you can do. Add cards. Gradually work up to a full deck or even beyond. With some of the other things, if you are having trouble getting it, you can notch it at first. That notch would make it just a little bit thinner so that you can do it. And then you just gradually work with pieces that have a little bit less of that notch until you're bending the thing that is left untampered with in the first place. That might be another way to go about it. There aren't really hard and fast rules when it comes to this stuff. It's find a way to work up to whatever it is that you're doing. But I hope that answers your question. If you need any additional questions answered, or you need a follow-up or anything, or if I left something or I said something that breaches another question, drop it in the comments below and I'll create a follow-up video. If anybody else has questions for me, drop it in the comments below and I will try to get back to you with your very own custom video. But that is it for today. Also, if you like the video, please let me know by hitting that like button. If you want to see more of this sort of thing, or you want to see the chronicles for my shows, subscribe to the channel. If you think anyone should see this, please share it with them. But in the meantime, please stay happy, healthy, and strong, and have a great holiday season, everyone. Eric Moss, over and out.